All right. We'll get started in just a second, everybody. Just want to make sure we're live on all platforms that need to be live. So let me do that really quick, and I'll be on the YouTube camera in just a second. Okay. Sweet. We are live. Double checking. Excuse me for that. Alrighty, everybody. How is it going? This is, of course, your boy Bernie here on The Charge, giving the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. And guys, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. This has been a very interesting day in a lot of ways to a lot of different people, and we'll kind of discuss that in just a second. Just making sure we let some people come into the stream, tune in, say what's up in the chat. Obviously, we're going to talk some Trae Young news. Sorry, Josh, if you're watching this, and Pete, I don't know if you're watching yet, and maybe you'll watch a little bit later because I know you got a lot of school going on. I'm ready to eat some crow a little bit on Trae Young, and you might be the first person I apologize to on this channel about Trae Young. So let me kind of fix this hair, man. It's just a little too crazy for me. But yeah, I might have to apologize a little bit to you about Mr. Young over here. So before we do that, let me just turn down the music a little bit as we are now kind of entering in our live portion of The Charge. And again, I do apologize that today's stream is a little bit earlier. I have a conflict event coming up, and so I have to be ready for that. It's at 7, so I just want to let you guys know that that's kind of why the stream has moved up a little bit, so it gives me time to prepare and things like that. But nevertheless, hopefully everyone is having a fantastic day. I know that for some people, especially here in the Washington State, you have the day, maybe a couple days or maybe the whole week off for President's Day. And this is a perfect time to relax, get your mind right, and get ready to get going again. Or maybe you're just coming off of work. It's a grind 24/7. So I appreciate those who are in the grind right now. I understand the feeling. So I hope you guys are enjoying the grind. And I hope that you guys are finding some sort of little bit of success each and every day when it comes to that grind. Because I know it can be grueling, it can be hard, and it can be frustrating at times. But the grind is worth it. Keep doing it. And shout out to everybody who is going through that grind. But nevertheless, let's get started in today's news and rumors. And before we do that, everybody, I want you guys to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. All that stuff helps out the channel tremendously and would be a great job for you guys to do to help us grow this channel even more. And so I hope you guys are able to do that. So I'm excited to talk about this stuff. Obviously, we're going to talk about two unfortunate news stuff. That being, of course, the Lonzo Ball out for the season news, and also this Nate McMillian news. And so without further ado, let's get right into it, and let's get started here over at the live scene. Alrighty, and today's first story we're actually going to talk about is Nate McMillian getting fired as the Atlanta Hawks head coach. This is basically short and sweet from Agent Wojnarowski. The Hawks have fired Nate McMillian as their head coach. The Hawks elevated McMillian to interim coach back in 2021. Joe Prunty will take over the interim head coach duties. Atlanta has been considering Quinn Snyder, obviously a big name that's still kind of out there in the coaching world as part of their top list. Charles Lee and Kenny Atkinson are also considered as well. Kenny Atkinson was going to take, I believe, I can't remember which job he was going to take, but I think it might have been the Hornets job. But then he ended up saying no to that. And so here is where it's kind of now the narrative of what's going on with Trae Young, and that is, of course, that he is a coach killer. The reason why this narrative continues to persist is because we remember Lloyd Pierce as the coach for the Atlanta Hawks when Trae Young was a rookie, and they were having some little success, and I think that there was a lot of frustration because they thought they should have been better. And then all of a sudden, Trae Young doesn't like Lloyd Pierce. They've had, confrontational meetings with one another. And Pierce is from the Popovich tree, and so it's a very frustrating thing to see, especially if you are someone who is a believer in the Popovich tree. But especially for Lloyd Pierce, who I believe has done it the right way his whole career, to not really get an opportunity to see this team grow and at least get another year to develop, I always thought was the wrong thing to do. But at the same time, I think at that point, I also was kind of like, well, let's just get another guy for Trae Young to kind of develop and grow as a player, because obviously that was kind of the big thing moving forward, was that, oh yeah, Trae Young is now gonna have a new coach, and he's gonna have a probably one of the most familiar face coaches in all of NBA history, and that's of course Nate McMillian. He's been all over the place as a head coach, obviously with the Portland Trailblazers a little while ago, and I believe he was also the Sonics coach, if I'm not mistaken, Supersonics, that is, back when they were still here in Seattle. And so, to me, I think this is where we need to start asking the question to Trae Young, and really asking the question to everybody in the chat and in the channel, and for people that are not watching and maybe are watching a little bit later. This, to me, kind of proves to everybody that Trae Young is officially a coach killer. I think Trae Young has a certain style of play that he loves, and I think that's kind of the frustrating part about Trae Young at times, is that, he's a guy that is very ball dominant and is not willing to play off ball, is not willing to do any of the things that, a lot of NBA fans, again, NBA fans don't know everything, but when it's kind of clear and obvious to see it, it's kind of frustrating to me to know that a coach like Nate McMillian, who is beloved by everybody in NBA, is fired. Like, that has to tell you something about you, Trae Young, as a person. And I've defended Trae Young for months on end. And I don't think I can defend him anymore after this firing, because Nate McMillian is the last person that should have gotten fired. And I'm frustrated because this team should be a lot better than they were even last year. They surpassed expectations to some people. I thought that I thought they could have been a lot better, and I thought they should have been. And the year that they went to the Eastern Conference Finals, it really should have been a welcoming party for the Atlanta Hawks. Years before, I claimed this team to be the Warriors of the East because they had Travis Schlenke. I know he's officially gone now. As kind of the mastermind behind the Trae Young and Kevin Huerter, and John Collins picks, and a guy that has really developed his own style and own personality throughout the ages. And it's kind of frustrating to see that this team is not going to live up to that expectations of Warriors of the East. I was huge on them. I thought they were going to be super good. They had obviously the draft pieces that I thought they needed in order to be a very successful team. They brought in DeJounte Murray. I thought that fit was going to work very well. But they also are missing some key defensive stats that they need from their two guards. And obviously with Trae Young, excuse me, they'll be the most offensively focused person on the team, and defensively focused player on the team, and defense isn't really something that they need to rely him on. He's more of an offensive guy, and so they're going to try to pretty much give all the ownership of the offense to Trae Young and nothing on defense to Trae Young. Probably going to move him off ball. It's just frustrating to see that the Hawks continue to be in this perpetuous state of very mediocre when they really should be better. Like, if we look at the standings for the Atlanta Hawks, and let's see here. NBA standings. Let's see here. Okay. They really should be where, honestly, the New York Knicks or even the Brooklyn Nets should be. Right now, they're 29-30, meddling with mediocre. It should be a lot better. This team is way too talented in their conference. They're 17-19. Like, you can't be that bad in your own conference when, teams like the Wizards are there, teams like the Bulls, the Pacers, the Magic, those teams are still there, and they're not playing very well either. Like, those teams are teams that you definitely should be taking over, and winning those games. I'm sure they probably have won a couple of those games, but they also have lost a couple of bad ones, and that's the reason why their record right now is where it is right now. And I just think the Hawks can do a much better job of supporting Nate McMillan and kind of what he needs. I just feel like right now they're kind of catering towards Trae Young, and obviously you have to as the superstar player, but at the same time, you know, you continuously try to trade for John Collins away, and no one's really taking no one's really taking a bite out of John Collins stock. Like no one's really looking at John Collins and saying like, yes, this is the guy that we need to have on the team and on the roster. And that to me is where the Atlanta Hawks need to decide like what's the next step for them. You know, you have two good players in DeJounte Murray and Trae Young. You have John Collins, who you like but are not in love with because, oh, excuse me. Not only are you not paying him the full contract, I don't remember if they're not paying him the full contract, but you paid him, but then you are like, well, let's see if we can still try to trade you, and so it just kind of goes to show that right now the Atlanta Hawks are not living up to the moniker of Warriors of the East, and I was wrong. I was really wrong on the Atlanta Hawks, and I was really wrong on Trae Young in terms of what kind of guy he can be. You know, I was like, oh, you know, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. But now this is the second time he's gotten a coach fired. I understand Lloyd Pierce was a little bit harsh and a little bit more critical of you, Trae Young, but you cannot get Nate McMillan fired, man. Like this to me is an absolute sin of the NBA. If there's one guy that you can't fire or you shouldn't fire, a guy that should never lose his job or ever like have players hate him, it's Nate McMillan. Like this guy is such a big asset to the NBA family, and anywhere he's gone, he's been beloved by so many freaking players, and it's so sad that Nate McMillan, a beloved coach, a beloved player, a beloved friend, a beloved family member of the NBA community, has been ousted by Trae Young. And I think Trae Young now needs to start balling out to where he's an all-star again, because to me, if Trae Young can't ball out like an all-star Trae Young, then this team is obviously screwed, and this team obviously needs to look at ways of making him maybe the second or third player on the team. Like that's kind of where I'm at with Trae Young at this current moment. You know, we go back to that Luka Doncic, Trae Young draft and like who won. You know, I was a guy that was kind of a milquetoast fence sitter about it and saying that he was, you know, it was a win-win for both teams. But, you know, obviously the Trae Young has gotten further in the, well, actually now they have both gotten to their own respective conference finals. Now everything is even, and now it's looking like Luka Doncic is a clear above and ahead player over Trae Young in terms of just statistics and also just like everything that they need out of a guy. And obviously Trae Young is not moving the ball like he should. And he's really just shooting a lot more than I remember. Like the reason why I like Trae Young so much coming out of the draft and why I liked him so much these last couple years is because he's a guy that was really assisting people. I mean, let's take a look at Trae Young's stats. We can take a look at his stats right now, you know, averaging this much. You know, we can take a look at years past, 9.7, 9.4. But really what I want to look at is the stats in terms of shooting percentage and stuff like that, because I believe that is way down from previous years. I mean, if we look at free throw percentage, that's way down than what it normally is. If we look at 3-point percentage, that is completely dropped off from last year's All-Star appearance. And to me, like, if you're an All-Star like Trae Young is, you cannot have a drop-off in your 3-point shooting because then you become average, right? 38 is pretty decent. 38 is like a solid number. It's not anything to sneeze. It's not, you know, it's not the best number in the world because obviously there's players that have had better numbers than him. But 38% is still respectable. But now that you're back at 32, that's like below average. You know, you're close to being a below average 3-point shooter. And we know he's a lot better than that. And really, you know, I think he's starting to, I think he's still trying to figure out how to play with DeJounte Murray because you can clearly see by the stats of the field goal attempts, of the free throw attempts, not really much of that. But also the points as well. I mean, this has been a very disappointing year, I would say, um, for Mr. Trae Young. I mean, look at the field goal percentage at 42%. You know, that's close to his rookie year numbers. I mean, that's something that you should never see uh out of any, like, you should never be seeing that. And that's kind of the frustrating part. And so, you know, it's kind of continuing this notion of Trae Young is continuously being a player that, one, is starting to regress a little bit. Not saying that he's fully like the worst player in the league or anything like that, but at 24 years old, you should be progressing, not regressing. And, you know, we can look at some key defensive stats and usage rate and other things like that. We could look at minutes played, player efficiency rating. This is definitely a not, you know, there's a lot of ratings that we could look at and really see like what's been going on here. And of course, you know, league shooting wise, it's been okay. If we look kind of like the advanced metrics and stats like that, trying to see if there's one that I really want to look at, and it is offensive plus minus, defensive plus minus. You know, it's a little bit better, but still, you know, not anything great. Offensive plus minus, like, you know, below, you know, obviously it's not the 2.3 it was in 18-19, but it's at the 5.2, which is not necessarily something that you want to be seeing from them. And so that's kind of where I'm at with the box plus minus. I think it's like everything in total, and at 3.3, that's just not going to cut it. And so I think that that's kind of the frustrating thing. And so, you know, I'm sad about Nate McMillian getting fired. I'm sad about the whole situation because Nate McMillian deserves a lot much better than what he's shown. And, you know, one thing that really irks me the most about this whole thing is now the Hawks have to figure out a way to stay within the pack. Because if we look at where they're at right now, they're 29-30. They're a couple games from away from the Miami Heat. But you don't want to be in the 7 through 10 position because that is where you could potentially lose that 7 or 8 seed that you're potentially in right now. And so they need to go on a huge run if they want to continue, you know, becoming better players, becoming a team that's going to make the playoffs. Because that's the worrying part about the Hawks right now, is that they're on the verge of not making the playoffs with the way that they're playing right now. And a team like the Bulls or the Pacers could sneak in there with the way things are shaping up if they continue to lose these games that they normally should win. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys make about this? Again, I'm so sad about Nate McMillian getting fired. He's a great coach. I think that it's so dumb that he got fired. I understand from a perspective of, you know, the team is 29-30. They should be a lot better than what they're shown right now. But at the same time, it's very frustrating to see that the Atlanta Hawks are currently middling in mediocrity right now, and they really should be a lot better than what they've shown right now. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys make about this? I know it's a very frustrating thing if you're a Hawks fan, but let me know where the Hawks should make their moves, if there's any moves to make, and also, who do you want the Hawks to hire? Should they hire Quinn Snyder, or should they hire a guy like Kenny Atkinson, or should they get another young blood coach and just kind of see if they got something there with him? I'd love to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Alrighty. And really quick, before we get going here, let's just make sure that there's no other kind of stories to talk about. You know, Chris Dunn signing a 10-day contract with the Jazz. Bulls signed Terry Taylor to a 2-way. Frank Jackson agreed to and the Jazz agreed to a 10-day contract, which is really cool to see. We'll talk about that Lonzo Ball news. Let's see here if there's any other kind of Jack Vaughn extension through 26-27. Good. I'm glad that he got the extension. I don't blame him at all, or I don't blame the Nets at all. You know, he's kind of been a good guy throughout this whole thing. Reward him with the contract, especially after all the crap that he had to put up with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving doing the things that they did. in terms of, the way that things were handled and the way that, Vaughn probably didn't want any of this. He probably wanted to keep coaching those guys and keep playing, but eventually, things had to happen. So, yeah, but I'm glad he's able to get his money, and he's extended through 26, 27. So that means he's there for he's there for at least 3 to 4 years. So I'm glad that that's kind of taking care of itself in a sense. But let's kind of move on. Excuse me, man. This is why you take a nap before you do any of your live streams, so you don't yawn like that. But with that being said, let's talk about our last story of the day, and that's, of course, the unfortunate news that Lonzo Ball will be shut down for the remainder of the season due to a left knee pain. And this is, of course, coming from Shams of The Athletic. The Chicago Bulls are shutting down Lonzo Ball for the remainder of the season. Ball hasn't played this year while dealing with this pain and discomfort in his surgically repaired left knee. Ball was diagnosed with a bone bruise and a small meniscus tear in his left knee in January of 2022. He underwent surgery and was initially given a potential return date before the end of last season. Ball had a setback in March and missed the remainder of the 21-22 season. While rehabbing, Ball had fits and starts with his recovery, including needing to be shut down at different points due to the continued soreness in his left knee. Now the Bulls have to make a decision to close the door on the 6th-year guard playing this season. Chicago is signing Patrick Beverley for the rest of the season contract as the Bulls continue to push for a playoff spot. Ball averaged 13 points, 5.4 rebounds, 5.1 assists, 1.8 steals, and nearly a block a game in 35 games for Chicago last season. At the time he was injuring in mid-January, the Bulls were near the top of the Eastern Conference standings. Chicago ultimately fell to the 6th conference and lost in a 4-1 series to the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round of the playoffs. And that is where it's very frustrating and disappointing, because I am a huge Lonzo Ball apologist, or whatever you want to say it is. But I'm just so sad at the fact that Lonzo Ball is not going to be playing this season. Again, Lonzo Ball is not Magic Johnson. He is not LeBron James. I always compared him to a guy like Jason Kidd. A guy that, again, isn't going to be the most flashiest guy, isn't going to be the craziest guy, but gets into the offense, does a lot of great things, and moves the ball around tremendously. He gets people open, and that's something that you want to see out of your point guard, especially a guy that, again, when these guys were cooking with grease and these guys were actually rolling and everyone was healthy, the Chicago Bulls were a top 2 team in the East. Top 4, to be exact. But then the injury came to him, and it seemed like the other guys just forgot how to play basketball. And that's the frustrating part about this whole situation. Like, what would it be right now if we had a healthy Lonzo Ball playing with the Chicago Bulls the last year and then also this year? The Chicago Bulls would be in a different position right now. Look at where the Chicago Bulls are currently. 26 and 23. Like, this is not the Chicago Bulls that everybody remembers from back in the day, obviously with the Michael Jordan era, but even last year. This team should be so much better than what they were. And so that is kind of the frustrating part about this whole thing, is that, Lonzo Ball gets hurt, and now all of a sudden now it seems like it's over. And Zach LaVine wants a trade, and they're going to look to get rid of Vucevic because it hasn't worked out with Vucevic. Like, there's a lot of stuff that the Chicago Bulls need to figure out. And that's the frustrating part about this whole thing, is that, Lonzo Ball was the key to keeping, or was the glue, honestly, was the glue to keep this whole team together. And it just seems like the glue is now been gone. It's a thing where I have no idea what's going to go on with the Chicago Bulls at this current moment. Lonzo or Zach LaVine is looking to get a trade. I personally don't know where he would go. Obviously, the Lakers have been rumored about it, but I don't know if the Lakers have enough cap space. They might have enough cap space and draft picks and all that stuff to warrant a trade, but I don't know if that's going to be necessarily the case for what the Chicago Bulls need. I think the Bulls need to start looking themselves in the mirror and seeing what they have on their roster and seeing if they can get some pieces to help out the situation. Because when you look at it, there's been court drama and issues with DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine in terms of shots, in terms of what's been going on in the offense. Vucevic is not playing like the Vucevic that we knew from Orlando, and maybe those were just inflated numbers. Again, there's a lot of inflated stats going around the league, and I believe Vucevic was a beneficiary of that and why he got such a big contract. Again, Ayo Dosunmu playing very well for them. Like, I think there's a lot of guys on this team. You know, Kobe White never really panned out for them the way that they hoped. Obviously they have their point guard in Lonzo Ball because I think Kobe White is more of a scoring guard than really a point guard. And that's the frustrating thing about the Chicago Bulls at this current moment is that they had their guys and they just got hurt. And now they're kind of stuck in this limbo, no man's land, and, battling it out as the 11th seed, sorry. Like, this team should be so much better. This team should be battling for at least the 4 or 3 seed right now. But, the injuries to them have obviously cost them a little bit, but also it's just the fact that I don't necessarily think the Chicago Bulls are currently playing as a team. It seems like they're playing as a bunch of individuals. It feels like that way with the Houston Rockets and now feels that way with the Chicago Bulls. And so I'm really hoping that something can happen here. And really, I think the Bulls have to start asking the question, like, what do you do with Lonzo Ball? That's the tough part and the tough decision about this whole thing is that I love Lonzo Ball. He's a great player and someone that I really respect and really enjoy watching. But at the same time, like when we look at it, really start to think about like what the whole situation going on in Chicago is. It's one of those things you have to start thinking about and thinking, do we need to trade him or release him or what's going to be going on? Because it's frustrating because I love Lonzo and he's such a great asset. When he's healthy, he is one of the best point guards in the NBA. But at the same time, if he is not healthy enough to help you out, it's hard to keep him or to pay him that much money and not get anything in return for it. And so that's kind of where the Chicago Bulls are at right now. They need to start thinking about that and really start thinking about what's their next move because I know they are a lot better than what they've shown. They can obviously play much better, but at the same time, without Lonzo there, it's hard to play like that and really hard to keep going and to believe yourself as a team when one of your star players is out injured. And so let me know in the comment section down below what do you guys make of this whole story. Again, I don't want to be on here too long because obviously it's late night and obviously I have a lot of things to do. And I do apologize that I can't be on here for very long. But I thought I'd give you guys like a 30-minute stream just because we have to talk about this Lonzo Ball news and we have to also talk about the Nate McMillian news. So let me know in the comment section down below what do you guys make of this Lonzo Ball news. Alrighty. With that being said, another thing I also want to say is the Will Barton and the Wizards agreed to a buyout. I think that this is big. I think if anybody can get Will Barton, you have a very extremely talented player, someone who, again, can help you win games and really be a great veteran leadership on the team. And so I'm hoping that somebody goes up and grabs him. But nevertheless, that I think is going to do it here for The Charge. Thank you once again for tuning in, giving me the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. Appreciate everybody that has tuned in right now. Again, I know that it's not the longest stream in the world, but I think in order to keep this channel fresh and also to keep us fresh as people that speak on the news, I can't be on here for very long. So again, I do appreciate everybody that's tuned into The Charge. Thank you again, and please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button, and we'll catch everybody on the next episode of The Charge. Peace out, everybody.